Multicultural Communities of Excellence. We're excited that you all are here. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about healthy eating, nutrition, health equity, and what that looks like for you. And also, we did bring some snacks for you to take with you as well. And so I'm going to introduce two of our speakers. Feel free to ask them questions. Don't be shy. I know it's early in the morning, but we want you to be engaged. Within our Multicultural Communities of Excellence, this space opened last fall, and it's really to engage students around all areas of ethnicity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This space is open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. You can use your access card to get in. You can come in here and hang out. You can watch movies. We also put on workshops and events within this space. And so we would love for you all to come, utilize the space. Typically, the students hang out. There's bean bags back there. I think there's one over here. And what's unique about our Multicultural Communities of Excellence, and there is one on every campus, is that we do have a kitchen. And so we do bring in chefs from respective spaces or different countries. So if you ever wanted to see what's going on, definitely look at Sun Devil Sink. Follow us on Instagram with our Celebrate Heritage at ASU. And so we have lots going on for the rest of the academic year. If you didn't grab a little flyer up front, this Thursday, we are hosting our first annual Fusion Fest. Fusion on First is our residential community that opened this fall, and what we want to do is build community. And so we will be hosting events in Civic Space Park, carnival style. We'll have free food, free games, activities, and live music from popular music. And so thank you all for being here. I'm going to turn the floor over because I'm going to be learning with you all. But if you want to come and have a seat, there's chairs up here as well. And then at the end, you will get a small demo. There is also recipes over there for you to take as well. But welcome to our space.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Lisa, we're transmitting this through Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, so you want to share? It's already set up. Oh. So maybe if someone plugs that they wanna join us.
For sure. That's not a problem.
I'll be on the lookout, so you might get a little prompt that says someone join us.
Sounds great. Cool. Welcome. Happy Monday. Oh, I already messed it up. No worries, I got you. Okay. Hit one of the buttons. So you do arrows, you're good. Okay, perfect. Well, my name is Melanie. I'm one of the dietitians here at ASU. I actually work over in the athletic department with all of the teams. So I might include some like exercise related stuff in here. Assuming everyone's probably pretty active, especially being on this campus, which is huge. But and then we also have Noah here, who's a sports dietitian as well. So let's get started. I want to start by going through just general nutrition overview, things that you can do here on campus to include like healthy options and what that looks like for just like long-term health. Before I get started, does anyone have any questions or anything like they're hoping to learn that you'd like to share? Okay. Well, if you think of questions, please just raise your hand and we can make it conversational as you have questions. This is as helpful as it can be. So just to start out, we're going to go through carbohydrates, protein, and fats, what that looks like in terms of food and how it plays a role in just like long-term energy throughout the day. So to get started, usually when I say carbohydrates, people think of bread or grains, but it's also more than that. It comes in fruits, starchy vegetables like potatoes, peas, corn, grains like oats, bread, bagels, all of those types of foods. And these foods are important to have throughout the day because they're one of your main sources of energy. So if you're ever feeling tired towards the end of the day and it's like, hey, I've gone more than 5 hours without a meal, I haven't had any carbohydrates, could be you're feeling tired because that food wasn't included. When it comes to portions of carbs, if you just take a look at your fist, that's about 1 serving size of grains. Based on the amount of activity you have, you may need 2 fist servings throughout the day. Less activity, you may need 1. Everyone's a little bit different with what their activity level looks like, but it's helpful just to know like what a standard portion looks like. 1 slice of bread would be another example of a standard portion. Half of a banana or fruit the size of a tennis ball.
That's usually about like 1 cup, 3/4 cup to 1 cup. So if you notice like you're walking around campus more or you go and do a workout, maybe to increase your servings here. If you have a day where maybe you're studying more, not as active, then we would want to stick with like maybe like 1 to 2 portion servings. So every day actually can be different depending on your activity level. Now I mentioned carbohydrates are your source of energy. It's especially like when you notice your heart rate is up or you're out of breath, maybe like I just power walked here from my car because I got the building mixed up. So in that case, your metabolism would be using carbohydrates for energy, heart rate's up. Whereas maybe when you're sitting in the library studying, not using carbohydrates for as much energy. Other big piece of this is fiber. Just raise your hand if you've heard the term fiber before. Okay, so you may associate fiber with digestive health, but it also plays a role in fullness. So fiber is a slow digesting food. So if you notice like, hey, I just ate a meal, 30 minutes later I'm feeling hungry, that meal probably didn't have fiber. Most people don't get the amount of fiber that we need throughout the day. So this can play a role in just like long lasting energy throughout the day. So those fiber foods are going to be over here in the complex carbohydrate group. So whole grains like whole wheat bread, brown rice, oats, whole wheat pasta, lentils, beans, those are going to be complex carbs, which have the fiber in it. Whereas our simple carbs are quick sources of energy. So let's say you have a test coming up and you're not totally awake, we would probably want sources of quick energy like fruit, juice, anything that tastes pretty sweet is probably going to fall into this like simple carb group. So quick energy, long lasting energy. Those complex carbs, just wanted to highlight a few more like sweet potato, whole wheat bread, and those others that I mentioned. And then whole grains. So you've probably heard the term whole grains. There's more than just wheat products. That's really what I wanted to show here. Like in the store, you can get red lentil pasta, farro. So if you're looking just to switch up your routine and cooking, or maybe in the dining hall, I believe that they have like some farro type salads. So those are all examples of whole grains. Quinoa, wild rice, even popcorn is a whole grain. So I mentioned fiber. Wanted to highlight the other sources of fiber besides just grains. And I'll explain why in a second. But if you look here, just raise your hand if you see like 2 to 3 of these foods that you think you like and you would eat. Okay, so see a few sources of fiber there. So why is this important? You have your digestive health. And so this is a picture of your intestines, large intestines, and this is highlighting your microbiome. You may have heard of like gut health. This is like a really like hot term right now in like marketing and everything, but there's still a lot of research getting done. As far as nutrition goes though, you kind of have control over how what your microbiome looks like. As far as nutrition goes, it is also impacted by your environment, genetics, and other things like that. But it's cool when you can kind of play a role in what your gut health looks like. So I have this picture here. So even as dietitians, we kind of sometimes go down and we'll have like pizza, fun foods. There's nothing wrong with these foods. I just call them fun foods. They're neutral. But if let's say we only ate these foods, like have pizza every day, fries, donuts, some of those fun foods, it's not going to create as diverse of a gut microbiome as some of these foods were, the ones with fiber. And how this can impact you is we'll have less diverse of a gut microbiome, which means when you get sick, you'll have less support from your body's immune system to fight off that cold or virus or whatever it is. Also, just your brain health, like mental health, is connected to your gut health. So when you're feeling like energized and just like ready to go, different things can play a role in that. So they are associating your microbiome with gut health, immune health, mental health, energy production, and preventative health as far as like your immune system goes. So what that looks like, so go back to this slide. So we have like, it will impact your microbiome eating these foods, like if you did eat them every day for every meal. But if we're eating a variety of our fiber-rich foods, like at least once per day, that's kind of like a good place to start. Like get some broccoli in or some vegetable in throughout the day. Each of those different foods, so broccoli might provide this, like I think of them as like tools. Each of those foods will provide support in a different way. And so you can think of like, this is broccoli, this is almonds, this is your oatmeal, and it's good to get a variety for that reason. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm gonna move on. That was a very quick overview of fiber, but just know like immune health and overall like digestion and keeping you full. That's the role of fiber. And then the other key point I wanted to just highlight, because I get this question all the time, is what about like taking a fiber supplement or like a green powder? You've probably seen those like in some way or another. And the difference is what we know from the current research is food in their whole form, like they're showing here, like broccoli versus like a broccoli powder. When the food is digested, it's through the digestion process that you get the microbiome to adapt. Because with fiber, it's not always completely digested. So they think that having more like whole particles is playing a role in your microbiome. So getting a powdered form, you can think of it as already digested. So you get the vitamins and minerals from it, which is awesome, but just not like the fiber component. Same thing with like juice and smoothies, still get the nutrients, just not the fiber. So keep that in mind. Any questions about carbohydrates? Okay, moving on to fats. Another really important macronutrient as it plays a role in your energy production. So fats are in nuts, seeds, avocado, fish, oils, all of those foods. And these are more like our plant-based and fish sources. So that's an easy way to remember them. And fats, just like carbohydrates, we have our standard portions. So some days you may need more of a portion depending on how much energy you use. Some days you may need less. So with oils, if you just look at your fingertips, 1 to 2 teaspoons is 1 to 2 fingertips of a portion. For nuts, it would be about like a small handful. That's about an ounce. And then with nut butters, it's like the size of a ping pong ball or your thumb. So when you're like spreading out the peanut butter or something, that would be kind of like a standard portion. So why fats? Energy, just like carbohydrates, source of long-lasting energy. It also helps with vitamin absorption. So if anyone takes vitamin D, or if you're eating foods rich in vitamin A, E, or K, you need fats in order to absorb those vitamins. Also helps with joint health. A lot of these sources are really rich in anti-inflammatory properties. And then also satiation. So I mentioned fiber, slow digesting, so are fats. So if you think of it as like this is sitting in your stomach longer, will keep you feeling full and energized longer. So I find adding, like if you're having like a piece of fruit, adding one of these sources with it will kind of slow down the digestion of the fruit, give you longer lasting energy. So that's a perfect snack option for in between classes, or you're having a long span of time before you can sit down for a meal. And then lastly, cardiovascular health. Specifically the omega-3s can help protect your heart. There's a lot of research also with brain health, eye health, and then heart health with your healthy fats. Okay, and then your third macronutrient is protein. So protein will be in your meat sources, poultry, eggs, and also dairy products. And then from the plant-based proteins, complete proteins would be things like soy products, like tofu. That would be another example here. With protein portions, a standard portion, think of like a piece of chicken or maybe like a black bean burger or something like that. If you look at the palm of your hand, that's about like equivalent to like 3 ounces of a protein source. And that's like your standard portion. So usually 20 grams is about a standard portion. That's a good amount to aim for within a meal. So 20 to 30 grams is a good amount. So that would be your palm. It's also equivalent to 3 eggs. So each egg is about 6 to 7 grams of protein. Oops. And then 1 cup of dairy is around 8 ounces of, or 8 grams of protein. So you'd aim for like 2.5 cups of milk to get the 20 grams of protein. Now there's all kinds of like ultra filtered milks. Has anyone seen those in the grocery store? So it's kind of like the same idea as Greek yogurt. Like Greek yogurt's kind of like ultra filtered and it's higher in protein than regular yogurt. Ultra filtered milks, like a brand's called Fairlife. I think there's some other brands now, but they have double the protein. So 1 cup of an ultra filtered milk would give you like 15 grams of protein. So that would be a good option to add in if you feel like you're not getting the right amount of protein. So protein plays a role in muscle metabolism, helps with rebuilding muscle. If you're looking even just like maintain strength, then you'd want to include protein. And with protein, there's a big piece with the timing. So in order to kind of like maximize your protein intake to get the benefits on like a muscle metabolism level, you'd want to time it appropriately. So how I explain this, I have a nice little analogy here. And I want you to think of your muscle as a brick wall. So your muscle is made up of amino acids. Protein is built on amino acids. So it's kind of like each individual brick. So on one side of the brick wall, we have this construction worker, and they are breaking down bricks all day long. And that's known as muscle protein breakdown. So even just sitting here right now, there's some muscle breakdown going on, and that's because your body pulls those amino acids for other functions, like metabolism. Then on this side of brick wall, we have this construction worker, and they put bricks on the wall. The bricks come in on a conveyor belt, and that symbolizes a meal with protein. If we don't get a meal with protein every like 3 to 5 hours, there's not enough bricks to put on the wall, and more muscle breakdown will occur. So especially like even if you're not like really into like muscle building or something like that, this is still important just for maintaining like your muscle health and strength, and even like that relates to energy throughout the day. So my piece of advice would be aim for source of protein every 3 to 5 hours throughout the day. And that basically gets at the point of not going long spans of time without eating. So thinking about yesterday, if you can remember back to like what you ate, like how many of you think you may have gone more than 5 hours without eating throughout the day? Yes, this is very common. And when you think about it, you're sleeping more than 5 hours. So when you wake up in the morning, your body is already in a negative protein balance. So if you're not a big breakfast eater, which a lot of people are not, it's sometimes hard even when you're like rushing out the door, you can at least get a source of protein just to start the day. That'll kind of like bump up the protein metabolism. Does that make sense? And then if you're commonly going more than 5 hours without eating, see if we can add in like a snack or something in there to just keep your energy levels up and protein metabolism up. Okay, so going back to the breakfast point, I have a few examples of breakfasts, and I want you to guess kind of which one is a breakfast that has protein. So we have oatmeal cooked in water with fruit, Cheerios with almond milk, bagel and cream cheese, avocado toast, or eggs and fruits. So raise your hand if you think it's A. Okay, maybe. What about B? Cheerios and almond milk. Okay, 1. Oops. Bagel and cream cheese. Okay, avocado toast. and eggs and fruits. Okay, so each of these, yes, they do have a little bit of protein. The eggs and fruit would be a complete protein and kind of getting up to that goal of the protein portion goal. So one that I want to highlight, almond milk does not have protein in it. And then some of the other ones, there's a little bit of protein in bread, but not a complete source. So what we can do to add protein here would be with oatmeal, why don't we add some peanut butter and Greek yogurt? That'll bump up the protein. With the almond milk, you can swap it out for something like soy milk or cow's milk. That would be an option if you're not a dairy drinker, like maybe here, adding a protein powder if you feel like you're not able to get like a dairy protein source. Bagel and cream cheese, you can make like a bagel breakfast sandwich and add 2 eggs onto it. Same with the avocado toast, add an egg on top or do like a side of Greek yogurt. And then last, this one, don't have to change anything, keep your eggs and toast. Any questions about this? Does anyone have another breakfast that you kind of like go to that you feel like you could add a protein to it on a regular basis?
I'm also interested from a cultural perspective.
Mhm.
If any students in class have a very different food item that they might eat for breakfast that is not highlighted. Right, so traditionally this looks more like the American eating pattern.
Mhm.
So is there any other eating pattern that you might be used to in your cultural routines that you may want to ask? Or if you're working with patients from a different culture, right? What would be something that would be a complete protein source? Anyone has some thoughts, some ideas?
Yeah, please share. Yeah.
I mean, for my family, what we do is like in the morning when we were in the building, we would have like some sort of a meat and then we would have like eggs and rice for them.
Okay.
So, and that's like kind of what that would be. Or we would have this thing. It's not. But
Yeah, thanks for sharing. All of those have protein in it, so that would be an excellent option. Does anyone else have one that they can share? You want to share a different breakfast item or something that kind of is your routine? Yeah. Okay, so now knowing this, what do you think that you could add? Yep, that would work. What about for the people who are in a dorm setting? Do you feel like you can find options that would have kind of like a couple food groups that we mentioned here in protein? Some. Okay, great. Yes, thank you. So on that note, we can move on to building healthy plates and snacks. That includes all of these food groups, and this will support energy and just overall long-term health, which might be hard to think about sometimes, but what you do on a day-to-day basis does add up in how you feel. So with building healthy plates, first I wanted to talk about just like you have a packaged item, how to identify if it will give you the energy that you need and kind of fall into the healthy plate and snacks. So I have tons of examples. So what you would want to do when you think of like a snack item, one of your go-to snack items. So kind of imagine that. And you can flip it over. The nutrition facts label has so much information, and you really don't have, like, I don't feel like you have to really go through all the numbers. There's some other like simple strategies that you can use. Simply looking at the ingredient list. So all of the packaged items are required to report the ingredients, and that's mainly for an allergy standpoint. So people with allergies know what they're eating. And this can tell you a lot about the food. So here we have like pasta that's made of whole wheat flour. So anytime you see the word whole listed next to like the grain type, that'll tell us it's a whole grain, and it's likely an excellent source of fiber. So kind of like look through, if you see that, you're good. That's a good option. Here's some other examples. So like whole wheat pasta, has one ingredient, whole wheat flour. Whereas white pasta, still an okay option, it's just not going to have the fiber component. So this is made of this. And then we have our like canned type pasta, which would just have more ingredients. Also, I realize this is a meal item that probably has like sauce, meatballs already mixed in. So you would expect it to have more than one ingredient. Just not like the fiber component. So it might not keep you feeling full, and also wouldn't contribute to like that positive microbiome. So this is just showing like canned pasta versus like if you take a jar of sauce, pasta, and then some veggies, you can make a similar type meal with kind of like more nutrient rich, basically. Here's some other examples. You can see a little bit of the difference by looking at the ingredient list. Some people will just look at the lengths. That's a quick way. When you're in a grocery store, there's tons of options. And so this can be a way to kind of like narrow it down. Look for the whole wheat and then a shorter ingredient list. Another way would be to look at the nutrition facts. You can just look at the fiber line, and if it has at least 3 grams of fiber, like a fiber-rich cereal, then that's probably a good option as well. And then another example here, so we have our carrots, one ingredient, and we have like our veggie straws, which is more like a chip than an actual vegetable. Then a few others, cereal, it's another one where there's so many options. So looking at the ingredient list and then looking for whole wheat can be a good strategy. We have our pop cereal or shredded. Then another example where you can take a packaged option and kind of like switch it for broccoli, cheese, and then like some herbs and spices. Definitely realize this is like a necessity sometimes, and we just don't have time to cook. And in that point, I would say like eating something is better than like kind of like trying to cook and keep up with all of this. I kind of for myself on busy days, like you go for the frozen, like pre-made stuff. Definitely just the goal there is to nourish yourself. And it kind of comes back to the fiber piece, like day to day, like if you can get a few sources of these fiber-rich foods doing well, it doesn't have to be 100%. So definitely be flexible. That's important as well. That's some other examples for you. I'm just going to kind of flip through here. So when you're building your plate, there's 2 things to keep in mind. First thing, with your snacks, you want to pick 2 food groups. That will contribute to long-lasting energy and more vitamins and nutrients. Meals, you want to pick at least 3 food groups. So it could be your protein, grains, and veggies, and then a snack, for example, could be dairy plus fruits. So like the banana example, to make that kind of like a balanced plate, we could do banana, you mentioned like eggs, and then what was that? Yeah, so then you can get multiple food groups. And then this is a nice visual. So just day to day, like aiming for fruits and veggies, whole grains, protein, and then we have our fats here. This is a nice plate model. We use these just instead of like trying to calculate all like the macronutrients and everything, just kind of like using a visual as an easy strategy. And then yeah, this would be a good option for days where you're getting some good exercise in and you're pretty active throughout the day. We want to increase our brains a little bit to account for that energy. Okay, I have a handout here. I'm going to pass it out now so you can kind of think through your routine a little bit. if you have a pen, you can kind of like work on it now, but I'm just going to walk you through this. So what we have here, actually, I have some examples for dining hall menus. But what we have is kind of like going along the 3 food groups for a meal, 2 food groups for snack. You can think through your daily routine and what that looks like for you. I have an example. Okay. So this is an example, but everyone's going to look different based on your preferences. On the worksheet, you'll see each food group and tons of examples of individual foods that fall in that category. And then you'll see that nice like plate model, kind of like how would you balance your plate out. And then this is a template for you, something where you can kind of like build out your daily routine. So what that might look like, let's say you do a yogurt, strawberry yogurt parfait. We have our individual ingredients here. So you list that in the second column. And then the food groups. So it's a good way to just practice identifying food groups at your meal. It definitely takes some time to kind of get used to figuring out what's in what food group. Lunch, you might have rice, chicken, and veggies. We list out those ingredients. So we have brown rice, which is your grain, grilled chicken, your protein, snap peas, kale, and corn as your veggies. Then dinner, you might have some salad, salmon salad. You can list out the ingredients. So we have spinach, quinoa, salmon, sliced almonds, and dressing. And then our 3 food groups. And then with our snacks, remember our goal is 2 food groups. We have apple and a cheese stick, fruit and dairy. Then we have hummus and crackers, and protein and grains. And then I wanted to show how many of you are in the dining hall for meals. Okay, I thought there would be so is that me? What dining halls are you in? Okay. Okay. So you can get all of their menus online. I just Googled Tucker dining menu and it was the first thing that popped up. You can click on it and you can select today. So this is today's dinner. So you can select that on the calendar. And we have, this is just starting at the top of the menu. So looking at here, does anyone see an option that would fall onto like a healthy plate or a balanced plate? We have our chickpeas, black bean burger. Any of those be options? Okay. We have mac and cheese, crispy chicken nuggets, and we have some French fries and Brussels sprouts. So if you were to take any of these options, how would you balance it out to match our plate here? Anyone want to volunteer? Let's go to the next one. There's more options. We have our hamburger, grilled turkey chicken, or crispy tater tots, and then pizza. So when you go through the dining hall, you can build your plate with multiple stations, right? So on here, do you see something that would be a grain or a protein that you could put on your plate? Okay. What would someone want to say what they would put on their plate, like realistically? What about you guys over here? Okay, so you do the black bean burger, and that's which food group? Yes. So you got your protein, then you have to pick your grain. So what can you do for your grain? Yeah. Which one? Let's go. There's a few pages here. What about over here? Do you see something that would fit as a grain with the black bean burger? Sweet potatoes? Yeah, that tastes good. Okay. So we have our grain, our protein, our fruits and veggies. Yep. That would work. I believe there's also a salad station. So that can also be an option. And then the dairy component. This is really for your source of calcium. So if you're not a dairy, you don't go for dairy. Other sources would be like cheese. Well, cheese would be dairy, but you could do like soy milk, almond milk. Those are fortified with calcium as well. Okay. Is anyone in Barrett's? I'm gonna skip this one. So yeah, the online menus are a great resource. And then we are able to build like plates with the diet hall options. Okay, before I go on to the next section, does anyone have any questions about this? Okay. So yeah, I encourage you like kind of practice going through this, even if you don't write it out. Like when you're at your meal, kind of take a second, be mindful, and look at your plate and kind of think through what's on it. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna move on to healthy eating on a budget, and then pass it on to Sarah.
So before I start, I want to know how many people have challenges with either food shopping, budgeting, or eating in your dorm room, I mean, picking like the best choices. Everyone want to share any thoughts?
Not even have.
Where do you guys typically go food shopping? Okay. Yeah. So one of the keys to eating on a budget is definitely packing and preparing. So pack and prepare as much as you can. Prepping for your busy day, you guys are in classes all day, and it's hard. Not always gonna have something. So you might go out to eat. You want to grab something. So planning can be really important. So making a list for the week can be a good strategy of some ideas that you want to bring with you. And then once you go to the store, you know exactly what you need and also the quantities of it. So food is also not going to waste, and you're also using exactly what you need. So try to buy exact quantities, and then plan it based on your recipes. So maybe find a few recipes that you can do throughout the week, so you can have that ready to go. Also batch cooking, so preparing, large batches and then spreading it out. Maybe you put it into like little Tupperware containers or little baggies to use throughout the week. And then drinking water using reusable water bottles also. How many of you guys use a refillable? Yeah, I feel like a lot of people do these days, but even if you use a plastic one, you can still refill that in the any of the water fountains. So packing your lunch. So we all hate soggy sandwiches. So trying to split up your meals, maybe into a container that is portioned out. You can kind of put it together yourself to make it a little bit more appealing. I know it's definitely appealing to go out and eat if you're not like super happy with what you brought also. So assembling it at lunchtime, and then having the night before is a big one, because a lot of times you're rushing in the morning to go. So I would definitely have everything ready to go the night before, to throw in your bag in the morning, and you'll feel a lot more prepared for the day. Mason jar salads, overnight oats, which we're going to show you guys in a little bit, would be a good idea. Then try to, like we just went over, try to incorporate all those food groups. So, bringing like the string cheese, some granola bars, things that are easy and ready to go.
How many of you pack your lunch? How many do you think like you could try having lunch or a meal? Okay. You could try maybe this week.
So here's just some examples. Some snacks that you guys can bring. Do you guys usually pack your snacks for the day? With more like snacks than meals.
You're feeling like snack fatigue, but you have them like towards the end of the semester. These are some examples, like switching it up, trying different combos can be fun as well. So just something to kind of get creative with if you want.
Yeah, so different fruits, you can do a trail mix, you can even make it yourself. You want to customize it. Protein bars are always good. Granola bars, you can do mixed veggies with hummus, baked and seasoned chickpeas, whole wheat crackers. So just a good list of some ideas. Does anyone else do any other snacks that they bring? Any good ones? About it. So here's some dorm room ideas. I know this can be a big challenge for most of the people that I speak with. So protein. Eggs can be a really great option just because hard boiled can be very easy. And you can always microwave also scrambled eggs too. So that could be a great way to get good breakfast in. I have a lot of people tell me they buy an egg cooker. The cheap one on Amazon, that could be really helpful. So that's always a good idea, but also string cheese, jerky, Greek yogurt cups, tuna packets, milk, and pre-cooked chicken. You could get the grilled chicken strips and defrost them and have them ready to go. A lot of people will do that. So in-season fruits and vegetables for your carbs can be more affordable and they also taste better. So that's also a really great option. So when you're at fries for what's in season or even looking it up online beforehand. But also, of course, buying frozen items so you know that it won't go to waste. You can get also a cheap blender and make up some smoothies. So you can put whatever in there. And that's a great way to also get all your food groups. Applesauce, red fruit, granola bars are great. Any kind of grain like tortillas, sandwich bread, you could also freeze to last a lot longer, waffles. And then things you can microwave in your dorm, potatoes, instant rice, quinoa, you make instant versions, and those steamer bags of veggies too. And then just other items having nut butters, any dressing, sauces, things to keep it more interesting. Because I know eating in the dorm room can get a little bit boring if you only have the basics. So does anyone have any ideas on any meals that they can make? Anyone here? Yeah. Yeah, and that also can stay on the shelf. So yeah, powdered peanut butter would be great.
With like shelf stable things too, like canned options can be like excellent, like way to stay in budget as well. And just bring it back to what I showed you with the ingredient list. There are lots of canned foods that are loaded with salt and preservatives, but simply looking at the ingredient list, like take beans for an example, you can find ones where it literally is just black beans or red beans, whatever it is. Green beans. So you can take a look at the ingredient list when you're looking at the canned options. That's a great option where you just open it up, heat it up, mix it with your rice or quinoa or whatever grain you have, and that's a shelf stable farm option too.
You can also rinse it off too. If there is salt, you can rinse it and that'll help a little bit too. Some dorm room ideas. So hydrating on a budget, like we said, definitely bringing your water bottle and filling that up throughout the day. Choose bottles that are free of this type of plastic known as BPA. So there are some chemicals that are not so great for your body, but most will be labeled BPA free. So just look for that label. Plastic containers, same thing. Just try to be environmentally friendly too. Think about reusing as much as you can. And then other things to think about, you could use sparkling water, seltzer water, vitamin water, kind of ways to mix it up a little bit. So you can always fill your water bottles with that. Some other lower calorie options here too. And then just some other tips. Online shopping is really great. You guys do any shopping online? Yeah, with you. And for that, you. What website? Oh, Instacart. Yeah. Sure. So a lot of those can actually have a lot of good deals. So I would keep your eyes open. Even Amazon or non-perishable items can be a lot cheaper. I would say only if you have the free shipping, so I feel like that makes a big difference. But looking online and getting even like items in bulk can help you save a good amount. And those are things you just keep in your dorm or keep in your apartment. So those are like protein bars, dried fruit, protein drinks, for example, on Amazon. Can be cheaper. You could also find discount codes and promotions, which will definitely help. Some snacks, tips, freezing your meat. So if you do buy meat and you plan on using it, sometimes you end up throwing it out if you buy it fresh, which can be a waste. Meat can stay good in the freezer for 9 months to a year. And then if you cook it and freeze it, it can stay good for about 2 to 6 months. So I want you guys to think about that when you're purchasing your food. You're like, okay, is this, will this be better bought frozen? Can I just store it if I don't use it? And then you're able to not throw your money away. And then, like we talked about, cans and jarred foods can be great, and then in season produce can be more affordable and also taste better. So have a little activity here. So comparing grocery store versus fast food. So this is just an example of a $7 grocery store meal. So you have your turkey bacon here, you have your eggs, and you have your English muffins. So that's going to be breakfast for the week. So you can buy a dozen eggs, a whole package, last week. Yeah. So what are some ideas that you guys have for grocery store versus eating out? So what would be a comparable, like let's say, I don't think it would, but let's say Starbucks. So you get your breakfast sandwich at Starbucks, it's about $5. Maybe you get like nuts on the side, so that's about $7. So that's one sandwich versus, your meals for the week. Then you guys have any other ideas of how you can swap what you're eating out to make it a grocery store option?
You're nodding your head in the back. Do you have an example?
So what do you guys typically, where do you go to eat out? Like in between classes or Starbucks? Yeah. Yeah, so I think, Starbucks is one, getting like any sandwiches. So I think just going back to packaging for carrying, because, $5 or $7 can get you a long way for carrying meals for the week versus that one meal. I know sometimes you're not perfect, obviously, you need to eat something, so definitely encourage you to grab something when you need. But thinking ahead and preparing can definitely be a way to save money in the long run. Any questions about budgeting or ideas that I didn't mention?
And just a minute, one more point on Noah's section was kind of going back to the healthy eating on budget. Fruits and veggies are expensive. We totally recognize that, especially now, prices have gone up. And so as much planning as you can do, a bag of frozen blueberries can last a really long time. So I encourage frozen and kind of some of the frozen or canned options if there isn't a good fresh fruit option, so that you can still get the fiber from some of your frozen broccoli. And then also the other point that I just like to bring up, just another way to think about this is, yes, one thing a dollar menu at a restaurant is going to be less expensive. Which one is going to keep you full longer and give you long-lasting energy? Is an apple and a cheese stick versus a bag of chips. Which one will keep you full and satisfied? So that's another way to think about it too. It may get you farther for slightly more. And then hopefully fruit and veggie prices do eventually go down. It is a little bit frustrating, but kind of using some of those tips as much as you can. should be helpful. So I have 5 nutrition kind of goals for you to keep in mind. You're able to get most of these down. You're probably doing pretty well with your nutrition and just healthy hygiene habits. So the first one is eat consistently throughout the day, nourish your body. Don't go long stands of time without eating. We've all been there. You end up not feeling the best afterwards. So that's goal number 1. 2, sleep. Aim for at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep each night. Naps count towards this. And one strategy that I usually recommend to a lot of people is think about your sleep goal throughout the entire week. So if you take your goal is 8 to 10 hours, times it by 7, and you can what's called sleep bank, which means like on the weekends or naps, you can add towards that bank. So at the end of the week, if you're meeting your sleep goal, you're probably going to be feeling well. So if you have a day where it doesn't go well, you're up late studying or something, try to like bank sleep throughout the rest of the week to get your goal. 3, we're all really good at this one now. Wash your hands before eating, things like that. Help stay healthy. Fruits and veggies at each meal. So try to balance your plate like that picture. You can identify like 1 or 2 bright colors. You're doing well. And keep in mind, different colors have different nutrients that promote like variety of your gut microbiome. So switch up the colors and what you have on your plate. And then lastly, hydrate throughout the day. Pack your water bottle, like put it in a place where you'll see it. Even like in your desk in class, it's in front of you, you're more likely to drink it. And then just one little piece here, if you love cooking, volunteering, we do have like tons of volunteer options in our department. We have smoothie bars that the athletes can stop at. So if you're looking for volunteer hours, and some people can get credit for it. So I just wanted to put a little plug here if you're interested in nutrition and learning more about it. We have like this volunteer opportunity. All right, have our recipe here for our cooking demo. But before we start that, does anyone have any questions? Anything we didn't cover that you're hoping to learn about? Yeah, that's a great question. So prebiotics and probiotics are basically food for that microbiome that you have. And that's an area I mentioned, this is an area that's still getting researched a lot. So prebiotics would be things like garlic, onion, some of those ingredients. Probiotics would be something like yogurt, where it's listed like active live cultures. So those foods are food for your microbiome. So it helps keeping it like, like that variety of microbiome, your microbiome, it'll keep it kind of like alive and going. As far as like supplements, it's kind of like hit or miss. Right now, it basically doesn't do any harm. We're not really sure what the benefits of taking like a supplement form would be. One area where there is a lot of research is like preventing the common cold. So that's where it has been beneficial. But I will say with supplements, there's a lot out there where there's marketing trying to get you to buy it and usually don't have enough probiotics to clinically make a difference. So if you're getting like probiotic rich foods, that would be kind of like the best option, I would say at this point. There's questions. Yeah.
Nowadays, there is this big fad on very high protein diet, very low intake of carbohydrates. So we talk about like the norm, right? People that are just put in yellow food. We talk about ones that are big with carbs, simple carbs, but, and also the ones that are skipping the protein because they're either vegetarian or not eating the animals. So, and we have 2 recommendations for those 2.
Right. So question was low carb diets. You may have heard of like a keto diet or paleo diet where they prioritize the protein or the fats, and it's a very minimal in the grains, very minimal in fruits. So those diets, one of the things that I like to highlight is, can you follow this long term? Think about just like long term health. they're very challenging to follow when you take out an entire food group. One of the things with the low carb diet is we know carbs are a source of energy. So a common symptom of following those is poor energy levels. So that's something to keep in mind. And it's harder to get the fiber because fiber is in grain sources and fruits. And so they tend to be very low fiber diets. So that would be kind of like the main recommendation there is, if you do, let's say you're really excited about it and you want to follow it, like I would encourage you to be flexible and just recognize what you're missing from foods you're not including. And then know if you do happen to have low energy, maybe it's time to add a little bit more carbs back in so that you can kind of get through the day. With the low protein diet, so if you are vegetarian or vegan diet pattern, there are ways to get protein. You would want like plant-based and just having a plant-based source at each of your meals so that throughout the day you have variety. So beans, legumes, quinoa. If you do have eggs and fish, that would be in, but otherwise like lentils and like soy-based proteins would be a good option to add. But it's definitely doable to get adequate protein. It just takes a little bit more planning so that you do make sure you're not missing out on a nutrient. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we have a cooking demo. It's very easy. That's the point. We wanted to give you just something that takes very little time, follows this like balanced pattern that we've been talking about, and we can make it literally anywhere, even in a dorm room, hotel, wherever you're traveling, something like that. So it's called overnight oats. Has anyone made overnight oats before? About 6 people. Okay. Well, hopefully after this, you may be inspired to try something new. I'll say I learned about this when I was a senior in college, and it was life-changing, and I wish I knew about it sooner. So hopefully this is something that you can take away.